For the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world, we are live and amplified. So let's get ready to podcast.
Fire it up.
Yes, I can.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Sorry about the little mix-up. I was trying to make sure everybody knew Central Time, but, you know, it's not always easy.
I struggle with time zones, so.
Oh, it's all good. It's all good. I'm glad you were able to make it. We are live on YouTube. We're kind of always continuously live on YouTube for this. So we have, how do you pronounce your last name? Is it Poles?
It's Pull S, right?
Pull S? Okay.
Yeah, Pull it, yeah.
I mispronounced it a few minutes ago. I'm sorry about that.
That's totally fine.
But I appreciate you jumping on here. And thank you for joining our fundraiser and awareness campaign to raise funds and awareness for pancreatic cancer for the PanCAN, Pancreatic Cancer Action Network. As most of the people know, my mother passed away in July, and she was the motivator to do this. She enjoyed watching the podcast, or listening to the podcast. And I know on the dark days while she was sick, she enjoyed listening from the living room, which she could only hear one side of the conversation, which was a very interesting thing. Because then after the podcast, I had to go fill her in as to what was being asked or what was being said. So it was interesting, but that was kind of why we decided to do a very long and a lot of podcasts. So
yeah, that's amazing.
As we kind of jump in here, let's have you introduce yourself to everyone and kind of what your background story is in music and how you got introduced and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, so my name is Meghan Pullis. I call myself an emo positive singer-songwriter, which essentially means that my music is a healing mechanism for me as well as for my listener, and it brings them sort of starting with the darkness into the light, and it leaves them with a feeling of being seen and heard and accepted with whatever they have been going through. And I've been writing songs since I was 17. It is my way to process my emotions, and it is a very incredible thing and a very healing thing for this world. And I am just super grateful that I get to do this, and I get to share with people, and I get to hear how other people have been impacted by music that came out of my soul. And yeah, it's been incredible. I'm out of Brooklyn, New York City. I've been in New York City for 9 years.
Nice.
And yeah.
And where are you from originally?
I'm originally from Orlando, Florida, actually.
Okay. So that was a big move.
Yeah, for sure. I had wanted to live in New York City since I was a literal child, probably since I was 5 and I saw Annie.
Had you visited when you were younger in New York?
Yeah, actually, my parents would take us. They would take us on a family trip, and we would go see a Broadway show, and we go to Times Square. And yeah, I would say since I was about 10, we had been going there like every summer.
Gotcha. And it was always Brooklyn, or was it just New York in general?
It was always like Manhattan. It was always like in the city.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I didn't really know what Brooklyn was.
Oh, okay. And how did you end up choosing Brooklyn when you ended up going there or moving there?
So it ended up, my college friend who I moved in with when I first moved here, she ended up finding a place in Crown Heights, and I think I'd heard that Brooklyn was cool, and I was like, okay, yeah, like let's do it. It was by a train and in a cool neighborhood. So yeah, Brooklyn's really cool.
For sure. And so as far as your musical journey goes, who originally introduced you to music, or what was your introduction into music?
I'm going to say my father. My father plays guitar and sings and plays piano, and him and his siblings have been playing music together since I was a baby. It's been a thing where they all get together, they bring out their instruments, and then they play mostly 1970s music, which is the music that kind of raised me. And just being around that energy as a kid, even, and just kind of soaking it all in, I really think my dad kind of transferred that over to me subconsciously. And it was just incredible to grow up in a household that music was such a part of it. Mm-hmm. I think it really has made me the artist that I am and influenced me in a big way to use music to sort of just to jam out to and to have, and it's just it's an amazing thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And did you start playing music professionally before you moved to Brooklyn, or was it something that you started doing after the move?
Yeah, so actually I went to college in Tallahassee, Florida, at Florida State University.
I moved from Tallahassee 2 years ago.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
Yep.
You know about Tallahassee. Crazy.
Yep, I call it the armpit of America.
Oh my gosh, literally.
Yeah.
Wow, that's so cool. Yeah, so I got my opera degree when I was 22, 23. And I always knew I wanted to move to New York, so I moved to New York and I did the whole opera thing. I tried to do the whole opera thing, tried to do the auditioning, tried to do theater, and it wasn't really working out for me, and it was causing me a lot of like distress and like getting up early, and like if you don't know someone and you could be talented but you're not going to get that opportunity. And so I just found myself alone in my bedroom, like writing songs like all the time about all of the different like feelings I was going through, and I was also dating and having situationships, and so I had to write about that, and I kind of just was doing that. And then I actually ended up living above a Def Jam record producer, which was crazy. I was like, what are the odds of that? And I saw him in the hallway and he was like, hey, do you play? Are you singing? And I'm like, oh my God, am I loud? I'm so sorry. And he's just like, no, like, are those your songs? Like, you're really good. Like, keep it up. And I didn't find out that he was like working for Def Jam until after they moved out. And I was like, what the okay. Yeah. Like that happened, you know? So I think like getting like little signs from the universe and little feedbacks from other people when I did decide to share my music, that this helped me, this made me think of this, wow, you really captured this in like such a perfect way. Mm-hmm. And I think like being vulnerable and allowing yourself to kind of connect with your listener is just super important, to be able to just share that. And you know, yeah, so it's been a journey. Yeah. And I'm very grateful for it, because I don't think I would have found the confidence in myself had I not decided to do this.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. For sure. Yeah. And I'm, to change gears a little bit, to kind of focus more over to the main reason why we're here, which is to raise awareness and awareness and funding for pancreatic cancer research. Have you had anybody in your life been affected by pancreatic cancer or cancer in general?
Yeah. So my grandfather was diagnosed with liver cancer when I was 12, and he was gone from us within 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
So that was my first kind of cancer experience. I've had family, friends, and such, and be influenced by it, and it really is just a tragic thing when the body is not able to fight it. And so my heart goes out to everyone, and to you especially. And this is such an amazing thing that you're doing for your mom, and I'm sure she's up there just smiling and really proud of you.
Yeah. like I've told so many musicians, if it wasn't for her, if it wasn't for her, I probably would have not put this whole thing together, because it was,
Yeah.
you know, not to put musicians down, but you're like herding cats.
Oh, that's very accurate.
It's just like, no, here.
You gotta you gotta like wrangle us and like, this is when you're coming and this is your time, and yeah.
Yep. So it's just one of those things, but luckily it's been pretty consistent all day. So I'm really happy with how things are going so far. And I'm sorry for your loss of your grandfather. How long ago was that?
I was about 12, so it was a while ago, and it was my first death, and I think I didn't really understand it. I think grief is so weird because when it happens to us at a young age, you don't really, we don't really process it until like years later, until we're ready to, I think. Yeah. And yeah, he was an amazing person. He was always just smiling and just such a lover, and just really, I felt really privileged that he was my grandfather. He also like fought in the war, and he was an incredible person. And I think one of the regrets that I had, and this was like something out of my control, like I wanted to say goodbye to him, but he didn't want his grandchildren seeing him, towards the end. And that was always something that I was like, oh man, I wish I could have, said goodbye. But, I feel like when people pass, like they're still here, right? Yeah. We can still talk to them. We can still see them in our dreams and be comforted by the fact that they are, in the better place.
Associate them with certain things. And yeah. So, no, I 100% agree. That's, and that was one of those things that I was really grateful to have the opportunity, was even though it sucked watching her go from, like, in the matter of 12, I think it was over 12 weeks, she was perfectly fine to not being here, and just watching that rapid decline. It was like, that was really hard to watch, but it gave me the opportunity to kind of come to terms with what was going on. And then the last couple of weeks, we were all a little testy and a little like, emotional about the whole thing. But I think as a collective, being myself, my sister, and my father, we were in a lot better place than we would have been had it been 2 weeks.
Right.
And if it happened that quickly. But that being said, I've been very strong in a lot of regards of, I've relinquished the fact that I can't control what I can't control, and there's no reason worrying or concerning myself with stuff that I can't control. And so, as harsh as that sounds, I think I kind of stuck to that while my mother was getting sick. Like, we can help her and make her comfortable, but we all know where this road is going. So, sucks she's not here, but there wasn't much that could be done at that point, because she had been complaining of a back pain for years. And just bringing that up again for anybody that's just tuning in, if something's not feeling right, or you're just not feeling like you used to or something, make sure you're going to get yourself checked out, because it's important. Cancer in general, unless, I'm sure there's a few outlying scenarios, because I'm not familiar with all the cancers, like the various different forms of cancer, but like for pancreatic cancer in general, there's no real symptoms until it's too late.
Right. And I think we know our bodies well enough, and I think we know when something is off, and if you suspect that this is not feeling good anymore, definitely go get yourself to a doctor. Because like the mortality rate, or the survival rate past 5 years for pancreatic cancer right now is 10%. So if you get diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, about 10% of them live past 5 years. And which is up from 4% in 1999, but
It's one of those things where it's still very, very, very low. And hopefully we can get ourselves to a better position where there's better survivability and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I appreciate you sharing your story about your grandpa. And liver cancer, it's different, but it's in that same area where it could have easily metastasized to the pancreas. And
for sure.
Yeah, it's, because that was one of the things that my mom ended up dealing with, was it metastasized to her liver as well.
Oh, gee.
Yeah, it was bad all the way around. So
yeah,
appreciate you sharing your story on that front. So let's kind of shift gears back again to your music, and where are you kind of at creatively right now? What are you working on?
Right now I'm recording my debut album, and it's basically an album about healing through emotional abuse and trauma, and that journey of starting off in a really dark place and thinking that you can't get through something, and this is the end, and sort of how do you get to the light and the inspiration and the encouragement, and sort of how we lean on other people and we can be inspired and encouraged by other people to heal ourselves, which I think is a really important topic and conversation for those of us, me included, who have been through severe emotional abuse, from multiple people. And it's sort of my telling of what happened to me, but also there's this whole storyline behind it of a princess who sort of grows up with abuse from her parents, and then she gets married off to a man she doesn't know who is also abusing her. And, the whole time the parents knew, or the mother knows, and she's not doing anything about it. And then she goes off and loses her mother, and then, she's battling her trauma, her anxiety, and her grief. And so it's how do you care? You're picking up all of these things like grief, trauma, anxiety, depression. How do you go on when you're carrying so much? And, she ultimately goes on this quest to find out how to get through it. And she goes to see this flower spirit who just tells her, this is the strength that you need, and this is sort of the message that you need. And, and then that takes her to the light. And I think it's just a very important album because I want people to feel encouraged that just because you have so much abuse, just because you have so much trauma and so much pain and hurt from that doesn't mean you're not capable of going on that journey and healing it. Yeah. No matter how far away it is from you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. How long have you been working on this debut album?
So I recorded the first track in September. I have the first track done, and then the second track will be recorded in a couple weeks. It's sort of piece by piece. I did raise some money for it, but I only raised enough for the first two songs. So I'm kind of just, it's a journey, just like the album is. The message of the album, it's going to be a journey for when it gets completed. But also, I believe I don't need to be rushing it because it is so important, and it is so it's going to be so big. And so I need to just be okay, we have enough for this song, we have enough for this song, now we do this song, and it's happening. It's not just oh, I wish I was recording. It's no, I'm recording an album.
Yeah, we're making it happen.
We're making it happen.
Yeah. And then as far as the creative process, what's gone into writing of the music? How have you kind of approached that aspect of working on an album?
So throughout the pandemic, I really, truly was able to kind of sit down and process a lot of the trauma that I had kind of put away. And I was I don't want to talk about it. Don't want to touch it. It was kind of all coming back to me because I wasn't going out. I wasn't talking to I wasn't socializing. I was kind of just in my bedroom. And being surrounded by the energy of living in New York City during the pandemic was just opening up so much for me and making me just go on so many tangents musically. And a lot of these songs just came out of moments of release of those times, right? Like just being able to face the pain and the fear and the hurt and the depression. I noticed that the pandemic really allowed me to become more vulnerable with my music and stop being so afraid of sharing the darkness. You know, life is dark. Like, life is very dark, and we should never be afraid to show that, right? Like, I think I used to be afraid to write about depression and saying that I had it and people to think a certain way about me. But I mean, I just released a song like in August called Lonely Town, and it's about depression. And I think I wouldn't have had the strength to do that had I not been able to kind of sit and be like, okay, this is what you're feeling. This is what you are. You're anxious. You're depressed. You're, you know, it's okay to be this way, right? Like, and by sharing your darkness with other people, you're going to encourage them that it's okay. It's not the end of the world if you wake up and you're not completely okay, right?
Absolutely. And in the music business in general, in an art form that you're required to be so open and like just on a nightly basis, like if you're out there performing nightly, you have to, like if you write a song about a friend's suicide and it puts you in that space, you have to constantly go into that moment that you felt, or like that it puts you on a nightly basis. And it's really refreshing to have musicians now talk about mental health and depression and all this stuff, because before it was very taboo to talk about that stuff. Right. And the only way you dealt with it is that's how we lost a lot of these great musicians, because they were drinking, they were depressed, they were doing drugs, overdose, you know, all that stuff. And so now that we have musicians that are openly talking about it, it's really refreshing. And I'm glad that you have been able to kind of put yourself out there and just, you know, speak honestly about how you're feeling about things.
Yeah.
So.
Definitely.
But I'm really excited to hear some more music coming out of you, or the new album, I guess, once it's ready to go. So I'm really excited to hear that. But before we kind of wrap up this interview or this segment of the fundraiser, we've been asking everybody a random question off of this nifty little question generator that I have. And your question is, what is your guilty pleasure?
Oh. What is my guilty pleasure? I love getting lost in a Netflix series. Like, I just love watching. I love binge watching shows.
Okay.
I think that it's just like I can't stop watching it. And I think that that's not something I would like to admit to people, but I just love like being invested and like taking a weekend and just like watching every episode.
Nice.
So I would say that that's my guilty pleasure.
What are you currently binging on Netflix?
Right now, actually, we're on Netflix. I'm not really binging anything on Netflix. My boyfriend and I started watching the QAnon documentary.
Okay.
On HBO.
Nice.
And it's crazy.
Yeah.
So I highly recommend it if you want to get weird with it.
Nice. I am currently on, I think I got 1 or 2 episodes left of the 2nd season of Tiger King.
Oh my God. Yes, that came out. That's going to be what I'm binge watching this weekend. Like hands.
It is literally everything you thought in the first season. Like, I mean, obviously a lot of people came away with different perspectives, but they just take a hard right turn in season 2 and confirm everything you've ever thought about the entire cast of the first series. So.
Wow. Yeah. That's going to be my weekend. I forgot about Tiger King.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't forget. My sister texted me, or she posted, or her and her husband posted something on Facebook about, hey, Tiger King is out. Guess what we're watching tonight? And I made the comment. I was like, well, I guess I better watch the entire second season or I'll be behind the 8 ball at Thanksgiving dinner. And she's like, yep, you know exactly what's going on. And I'm like,
Awesome.
right. So that's kind of where I'm at. But I want to thank you so much for jumping on the podcast and just sharing your story. And hopefully we can raise a few dollars for the Pancreatic Cancer Action Network. If you're interested in donating, links are in the comment threads below or posted throughout our social medias, or any of the musicians that you're interested in listening to and listening to the conversation. I'm sure they've posted all over the place as well. But before we kind of wrap this up, if people want to check out any of your upcoming music, any of that fun stuff, just like what you got going on, where's the best place for them to do that?
Yeah, so I'm on all of the platforms. I'm on Spotify, I'm on Amazon, I'm on all Tidal. There's so many of them.
Yeah.
You can Google me. You can find me pretty easy. You can follow me on Instagram. It's Meghan Pullis, MEGHANPULLES on Instagram. You can find me on Twitter, Meghan Pullis 89. You can find me on Facebook, facebook.com/Meg Pullis. I also have a Patreon community, so you can go to patreon.com/Meghan Pullis. And yeah, thank you, Tom, so much for having me. This was an incredible conversation, and it's so wonderful to shed a light on a loss of your mom, and I think you're doing an amazing thing.
Thank you so very much, and hopefully once you get closer to releasing some more music, feel free to reach out. Love to get you on and we can do a real deep dive into the psyche that is your music career and everything you got going on. So I
Awesome.
really would appreciate that. But yeah, thank you everybody for tuning into this segment. We will be back here in a few minutes with Dustin Brown. We got him coming up, a buddy of mine from right here in Waco, Texas. And everybody that's donated so far, thank you so very, very much. We are getting ever closer to our goal of raising $10,000. And if you're interested in donating or considering donating, hopefully some of the stories that we share will help motivate you to donate what you can. Donation links are in the comment threads below if you're on YouTube, or if you're perusing through Facebook. I'm sure you've stumbled across one of the 800 posts that we've had. So once again, thank you all so very much, and we'll be back here in a few minutes with Dustin Brown.